Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. It's probably not Monday by the time you're watching this because it's going up the Monday before Christmas. So if you're working today and watching, thanks. Welcome. Happy you're here. If it's after the holidays, hope it was great for you. But last episode of Maximize Monday for 2024, we made it. We're through the year. And as you can see, new guests with me. I have Lindsay joining me to talk about her career transition, which I know a lot of people in my network right now are kind of, over the holidays taking the time to assess what they want to do with the next steps in your career. So had Lindsay jump on here with me to kind of discuss her path. So Lindsay, welcome. Thank you so much for taking some time here.
Thank you for having me.
Course, of course. So wanted to start off the conversation here, just kind of going over the transition itself. So you went to school for sports science, sports management, but recently made the move into real estate. So wanted to kind of have you walk me through that journey. What initially kind of got you interested in real estate? What appealed to you? And now that you've made the decision to do this, what's kind of most exciting for you as you look ahead to, your pivot into real estate and starting this new career?
Yeah, sure. So I spent about 15 plus years in the sports industry across kind of multiple facets. I worked on the team side in the NBA. I worked for a couple of agencies, and then most recently worked in the tech startup space, but still sport adjacent. And I was living in Philly working for a tech startup. It's actually right when COVID hit. So not a ton of work and sports happening, but the company I worked for, was a technology that actually brought fans back to stadiums safer
Okay.
with contactless technology. So actually, we partnered with some of the biggest brands in sports, and I was traveling all over the place, and it was awesome. The business model that we had at that time was not sustainable. And also at that time, personal reasons moved me out to Westchester, suburbs of Philly. Um, and over that time, my role was just not fulfilling me in the way that I had wanted to. I didn't really have the same level of ambition or interest in traveling the way that I was. And so I parted ways with that company. I joined another startup out of New York. It was more in like the consulting, bespoke building of media technology, websites, things like that. Super excited about it, but ultimately, they weren't generating enough new business to justify my role.
Mhm.
The writing was kind of on the wall for a couple of months that this probably was not going to be an opportunity that would sustain me. And so my fiance and I really started to talk about like what would that next step be for me. You know, Maintaining a fulfilling career in sports didn't really feel like something that I would be able to do. Most of the major agencies are out of LA or New York or other really big metropolitan areas. And so we started to look at what other things interest me, and real estate has always interested me from afar. In sort of the way that I never thought I'd actually be in real estate, but I just always thought it was really interesting. And so decided to kind of take that leap. I got my license. And it really seemed like the best opportunity to fulfill me from a career perspective, but also from a personal standpoint. And I'm excited that it is entrepreneurial. I'm excited to be able to build a business that can potentially be extremely lucrative, but also provides me a lot of autonomy and flexibility for what I want to do, both from professional perspective, but also personally.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So let's talk a little bit more about the decision here, because that's one of the key pieces of feedback. And
Mhm.
I went through it for myself, going from education into recruitment. A lot of the people I work with and talk to are transitioning from education into something new. And there's kind of that hesitancy early on. I mean, you mentioned it yourself. It's 15 years you were in this industry. So to go from that,
Mhm.
something well, something you've been successful in, something that you invested a lot of time and energy into, starting with your degree and just kind of saying, I'm doing something completely different. So, what was the kind of the process for you in terms of overcoming the nerves, the hesitancy that comes with like, do I really want to start fresh? Can I try something new type of conversations you're having with yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I'm still very much in that phase, right? This is very much a new venture for me, and the decision and the conversations were very collaborative between my fiance and I.
Mhm.
We have a family, so we have to think about, these decisions don't just impact me anymore, it impacts my family. And so it was very collaborative. I would say I'm super fortunate to have his support and be in a position that I can kind of take a leap of faith and try something new. It's very out of my comfort zone. I'm kind of used to corporate America where you get the playbook, you get your clients, you get your meetings, you kind of get what the expectations are, and there's a roadmap for you. And here, there are a million and one ways to slice this and to approach it. And so, no one wants to start over when they're knocking on 40's door. But luckily, I, have my family support, I have my fiance support, and it really just made the most sense for our family. And I probably would not have done it if I weren't in the position that I am in that affords me the ability to kind of take that risk and do something on my own and build a business from scratch, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. So another question I get a lot, and it's something that again, I went through it myself in terms of the transitioning skills. You've done something for so long to start something new. You have to pull from past experience, or you're not going to make it anyway. And obviously, your focus early on was sales, and there's an aspect of
Mhm.
selling when you work in real estate. But how are you trying to aim the past experience that you have and using that to find continued success in this new role? What are some of the skills you developed in sales that you're really looking forward to using as you enter real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that my entire career, all of my roles, and I have an interesting path, but all of my roles have been grounded in relationships. And I think I attribute a lot of my success throughout my career in my ability to um, generate authentic relationships, whether it's internally with colleagues or certainly externally with clients. And so I think that will be, probably the number one thing that I'll be able to carry from my previous career into this new venture, because it is all about relationships and not only creating those relationships, but it's, the agents that are most successful are now building their businesses off of referrals. They are no longer needing to do the grassroots, the hit the ground, the door knocking, all of that kind of traditional stuff that you see. Their business is solely built on referrals. And so relationships are at the core of that. So I've always said that I am a kind of relationship seller with a sales aptitude. So like I don't consider myself a salesperson. It kind of is an icky word for me. But at the core of it, I am, right? But I truly like to focus on the relationship part, and then everything else will kind of come together. But I think that relationship building will certainly be pivotal in how I move forward in real estate.
Yeah, 100%. So you mentioned your unique path you've taken. I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit too, because it seems like a lot of your success throughout your career so far has been, dependent on your ability to adapt to different markets. So, what was that challenge like for you? Obviously, you kind of kept some foot in the sports industry, but you adapted to new markets in sports. So, how did you try to push yourself to
Sure.
expand on your skills and make sure you were breaking through and not limiting the type of opportunity that you were going to pursue?
Yeah, I mean, early on, I don't know if I learned it or someone told me, but I've always been very open to new opportunities. Younger in my career, I always wanted to make sure I had a lot of negotiables and very few non-negotiables. I wanted to keep myself open to a lot of new opportunities. And I've always really tried to surround myself with people and mentors that I admired and whose work I wanted to emulate. And so I'm extremely lucky for the most part. I've had exceptional leaders. I've had very strong female leaders in my career who've really supported me. And so, because of that, I really followed people and not jobs.
Mhm.
So if you looked at, especially in sports, there is a path, right? If you're on the ticket sales path, if you're on the sponsorship path, if you're on the marketing, whatever it is, there's kind of a roadmap that people generally follow. They hop from team to team, from agency to agency to like figure out what that path is and they want to stay on it.
Right.
I think I was a little unique in the sense that um, again, I had really strong relationships with mentors. And if there was an opportunity that took me from sales to HR, as an example, or from HR then back into sponsorships and then into the tech space, I trusted these people trust me. And it really afforded me the ability to kind of pivot and make some of those interesting choices with my career. But I'm very confident over the years in my ability to adapt and in just kind of my openness to learning, my teachability. I kind of have the mindset that like none of this is rocket science. So my kind of core strengths and abilities, I can adapt, and what I don't know, I will learn.
Right.
And so I think that has helped me and allowed me to take on new challenges that might seem a little scary, but it's really the incredible support system that I have around me and the people that have trusted me to kind of come along with them as well.
Definitely. And this is a question I didn't send you earlier, so gonna throw you a curveball here,
Sure,
but nothing too crazy. So
I'm ready.
you've worked with some startups recently, and I think right now there's a lot of hesitancy around that, right? People want to
Mm,
find stability. When they're looking for their next opportunity, they can sometimes shy away from working for a startup just because of the unknowns there. So, what was appealing to you about that, especially coming out of the pandemic, pursuing different opportunities with startups? What really made you want to take that on and kind of sell people on that opportunity if they're considering it now?
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be helpful because I do think it happened to me three times in a row from a startup perspective, but um, they were very well-funded startups. So when I say startup, it they truly were, um, but they had backing from very, very deep pockets.
Mhm.
So I was never in a scenario where it was like, oh, you'll get a bunch of equity, but we're going to pay you pennies. Like I
Mhm.
was always compensated very generously, so that makes it easier. It makes it easier when you still have that salary, you still have the comfort. And to be honest, if I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't have made the same decisions. So, but at the same time, the first startup I was at, COVID hit and they let me go like that, right? And so then all of that stability was just out the window.
Mhm.
This most recent one that I was at, they didn't have they didn't generate the new business that they were anticipating to justify my role, and so we had to part ways. So while yeah, there was some stability from a kind of compensation perspective, it can go very quickly. And that was as I was kind of discussing with my fiance last summer about kind of what the plan was. I was very clear that I did not want to go to another startup. I was very clear that like, which you could argue that starting a real estate business is a startup, but I didn't want to
That's
go into another situation with a company that wasn't super solid. So that did impact kind of my decision moving forward.
Gotcha. Okay. So pivoting back to real estate, and I've spoken to a few people in the industry. Some are new to it, some have been around for a while. I think that kind of the consistent message I get is how important branding is when it comes to being successful within real estate. And there's a need to constantly be marketing yourself, marketing the homes that you're working on, creating content, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something a lot of people struggle with. You haven't seemed to, and correct me if I'm wrong there, but in terms of like looking at the content you're creating already and creating meaningful relatable stuff that is going to appeal to people that you want to work with. It's something that you seem to take into naturally within your recent post. So what was that process look like in terms of developing that strategy. I'm new to this. I want to set myself apart from everyone else that's already in the industry, but I also need to make that introduction for myself too. How did you try to, showcase your personality, your love of your community, and start building on that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes, right? Like this is still very new to me, and it is certainly out of my comfort zone. I, I'm really trying to focus on doing a few things really well and really consistently. I think that's the key. And when I first kind of got into this world a few months ago, I was very overwhelmed because there are, like I said earlier, a million ways that you can do this and be successful in real estate. And it almost felt like I was trying to boil the ocean where, there are so many things, shiny objects that I could focus on. And I don't want to spread myself too thin. I want to focus on doing a few things, key things well and consistently. And I think that's going to be key. And then over time, hopefully it pays off. I mean, the things that I'm doing now to build my brand, build relationships, and really just let people in my network know that I'm a realtor and remind them that I'm a realtor and stay top of mind. Um, might not have any real impact for a couple of months, right? This is not instant gratification where I do one post and I have five people emailing me to sell their home. So this is going to take time. And so my strategy is really to try to be patient, stay the course, and just remain consistent. I think consistency is really going to be the key. And that's really my focus right now. And then I'll pivot, right? If after a while I don't see um, any positive outcomes, I might take a look at the roadmap. But for now, I'm just trying to focus on a few key things.
Yeah, definitely a lot of trial and error when it comes to that for sure. So,
Yes.
on the right path. And you mentioned your network, and again, talking to people in real estate, networking is equally, if not more than important, branding and marketing. So to be successful, you kind of have to build up that pipeline. And you mentioned it earlier, it's a lot different now. There's not the door-to-door knocking, there's not the sending out the mailers. I mean, people still do that, but the success rate of it is probably so different now than it was even 5 years ago. So with this concept of networking being such a struggle for a lot of people, especially, if they're starting something new, they know one industry so well. And so to start networking in a new industry can seem overwhelming. And for you, it's not even necessarily an industry. You kind of have to network with
Hmm.
everyone. So what's kind of your strategy walking into that? Over the years, you've seemed very confident in terms of meeting new people and developing this network. How are you going to rely on those skills to help you stand apart?
Yeah, I mean, networking in the traditional sense actually does not come naturally to me. Um, I I prefer kind of smaller, more intimate settings versus the large group where you're just kind of having small talk. But having said that, working in sports was an extremely small industry. Everyone knows everyone. And over time, it really helped me build that muscle to be able to walk into a room and try to generate conversations that hopefully lead to a meaningful dialogue that then can continue on, right? I think real estate's interesting where, my perspective, it feels like realtors are a dime a dozen. And there are so many um, around that from a networking perspective, I think it's really trying to set myself apart and build my value proposition, right? What's going to make me unique? Where is my niche? And then just focus on that, right? Like I'm trying not to focus too much on things that don't feel authentic to me. Certainly, I've been stepping out of my comfort zone a lot with some of the things that I'm doing, whether it's on social media or events and things like that. But really trying to focus on what feels authentic to me, which is strong relationships, the community, um, philanthropic endeavors. Like just there are key pieces that I'm going to really lean into. Um, And again, hopefully that generates some business, but that's kind of my strategy from a networking perspective is relying on the community that I already have and just building and fostering that and strengthening that.
Yeah, similar to the content creation, a lot of trial and error when it comes to networking because it's a lot of things that you'll try
For
to
sure.
and it works. Sometimes it doesn't. I've been left on red thousands of times, so can't be discouraged when it comes to that in any industry.
Yep.
For sure. So, last question I have for you is the question I give to everyone who joins me on the show, and it's the advice portion, just because there's so many similarities and so many differences in terms of the advice that people have found to be kind of beneficial over the years. So, for you, what is that key piece of advice you received either early on in your career or recently when you were deciding to make the change that you found like really helpful when it came to searching for that next opportunity for yourself?
Yeah, I have two that have always really stuck out to me. The first one might sound a little odd, but someone gave it to me when I was in college, and it was don't focus on the job that you want, focus on the job that you have. In the sense of, goals are extremely important. Understanding what your roadmap and having a vision for where you see your career going is vital, right? But I think too often especially younger people, I think get too focused on that and they're not focused on doing the job that they have to
Right.
the best of their ability, right? If you are the best at what you do, people will notice and opportunities will come to you. I think sometimes we like to try to skip steps because we want the big office and the shiny title and all of that. But I think the best way to maintain and sustain longevity in a career is just doing the simple things the right way.
Mhm.
And then the other one is something that I kind of mentioned earlier, and it again applies younger in a career, but having as few negotiables as possible and having as few non-negotiables as possible and being open to opportunities. I would not be sitting where I am if I had tried to follow a traditional path. But I always tried to be super open to opportunities. And I think that can be very valuable, taking kind of the road less traveled sometimes. So figure out what your negotiables are, or non-negotiables are, but then aside from that, be super open to what else can come your way.
Yeah, absolutely. So then before I let you go here, take some time, let people know where they can find you, where they can connect with you, if they're interested in networking or, they have a house to sell or a house they want to buy, how can they get in touch with you and discuss that stuff?
Sure. So my email is lindsayschwartz@kw.com. Instagram is LinnyLulu11. You can follow me there, and then I'm on Facebook as well.
All right. Yeah. And absolutely. I will have tagged you as well on LinkedIn. So if you're not connected following Lindsay, make sure you're doing that
Oh,
there.
I'm also on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. All right. So I appreciate you taking some time today, right before the holidays, to
Yeah.
pivot. If you are not following, make sure you're connected with her. If you're working a lot, if you're working a few days, whatever your schedule is this week, hope it's very beneficial for you. Take some time with the family, with friends, for yourself. But make sure you're taking self care is very important around the holidays. So make sure you're doing that too. And we will see you in the new year.
Thank you.